Most people would never look twice at these nickels, and that's exactly why they get ignored. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're exploring 3 Jefferson nickels that might be hiding more than just 5 cents of value. 2006 D. Jefferson nickel. 1984 D. Jefferson nickel. 2012 D. Jefferson nickel. These coins are made from a durable copper-nickel alloy and feature the classic Monticello reverse design, a long-standing symbol of U.S. coinage. At first glance, they look worn, dirty, and completely ordinary, just everyday pocket change. But sometimes, even common nickels can show rare mint errors, die varieties, or high-grade conditions that catch the attention of collectors. So before you spend your next nickel, take a closer look, because one small detail could change everything. Let's start with coin number 1. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and completely ignored its story? Most people do it every day. A small nickel. A quick glance. And then it disappears into spending. But sometimes, the most ordinary objects carry the longest silent journeys. Today's story begins with a coin that feels too modern to matter. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel. At first sight, it looks completely normal. No shine that demands attention. No rare visual error that screams value. Just a standard 5-cent coin. The familiar face of Thomas Jefferson on the front. And Monticello standing quietly on the reverse. Simple. Clean. Everyday design. And that is exactly why people overlook it instantly. Because the brain assumes one thing. Backhand index pointing right: if it looks common, it must be common in value. But coin collectors never rely on first impressions. They rely on survival. They rely on condition. They rely on time. When this coin was minted in Denver in 2006, it was not special in any dramatic way. Millions were produced. Millions entered circulation. Millions were released into everyday American life. Cash registers. Stores. Gas stations. Vending machines. Everywhere. At that moment, this coin was just another part of the system. No attention. No excitement. No awareness of its future importance. Just a simple piece of currency meant to move quickly from hand to hand. But here is where the story slowly begins to change. Because the moment a coin enters circulation, its real journey starts. And nobody can control what happens next. Some coins stay in pockets for days. Some move through cities within hours. Some travel across states without anyone noticing. And some get forgotten in jars for years. The 2006 D nickel experienced all of these possibilities across millions of identical coins. And that is what makes coin collecting interesting. Not the moment of minting, but the life after minting. Because life is what changes everything. Every touch. Every transaction. Every surface contact slowly begins to alter the coin. Not dramatically at first, but quietly. Step by step. Over time. Small scratches appear. Original shine fades. Sharp details soften. Edges lose their crisp definition. And what once looked new starts looking aged. Collectors notice these changes immediately. They don't just look at the coin. They study it. They slow down. They focus on detail. Jefferson's portrait becomes the first checkpoint. Is the face sharp? Are the lines still visible? Or has circulation softened everything? Even the smallest difference matters. Because in numismatics, small differences create separation. Then attention moves to Monticello. The building on the reverse side. Its steps. Its structure. Its fine architectural lines. If those details are strong, the coin is considered better preserved. If those details are weak, the coin is considered heavily circulated. And that is where perception begins to change. Because now the coin is no longer just a nickel. It becomes a condition-based object. A preserved moment in time. But here is the important truth most beginners miss. Backhand index pointing right. This coin is not rare because of production. Backhand index pointing right. It becomes interesting only because of condition variation. That means two identical 2006 nickels can look completely different today. One might be dull and worn. The other might still look sharp and clean. And that difference is everything. Because collectors don't chase quantity. They chase quality within quantity. They don't ask how many exist. They ask how many survived well. And that question changes the entire value mindset. Even though this is a modern coin, it still goes through the same process as older coins. Time affects everything equally. Metal does not stop aging. Surfaces do not stay perfect forever. Every movement leaves a trace. Every exchange adds history. Every year adds wear. Even if nobody notices it happening. And that is what makes this coin silently important. Not because it is rare, but because it represents millions of unnoticed journeys. Think about it. This coin may have been in someone's pocket during daily life. In a store transaction you never saw. In a coin jar sitting quietly for years. Or circulating endlessly without pause. Each possibility creates a hidden timeline. A timeline no one records. But one that still exists in physical form. And that is the real beauty of coins like the 2006 Jefferson nickel. They are not loud. They are not dramatic. They do not announce value. They simply exist. Carrying time within them. So when you see a coin like this again, don't rush past it. Don't assume it is meaningless. Don't treat it as just change. Because sometimes, the most ordinary-looking objects are the ones that have traveled the longest silent journeys. And this is only the beginning. Because the next coin carries a different year. And a different kind of hidden story waiting to be uncovered. Now we move back in time. To a coin that feels simple on the surface. But carries a completely different energy in collector eyes. The 1984 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, nothing about it demands attention. It looks ordinary. Familiar. Even forgettable to most people. Same Jefferson portrait. Same Monticello design. Same 5-cent identity. Nothing flashy. Nothing rare-looking. Just another nickel from everyday life. And that is exactly why it gets ignored. Because the human brain is trained to overlook what feels common. But in coin collecting, common is where the real observation begins. When this coin was minted in Denver in 1984, it entered a world that was already moving fast. Busy streets. Growing technology. Constant cash transactions. Coins were not collected back then. They were used. And that is an important difference. Because coins that are used don't stay perfect. They don't stay sharp. They don't stay untouched. They move constantly from one hand to another. And every movement leaves a mark. This is where the 1984 nickel begins its real story. Not at the mint, but in circulation. Imagine its early journey. A store counter exchange. A vending machine transaction. A pocket change moment that nobody remembers. Nothing special. Just everyday life repeating itself. But repetition is what creates wear. And wear slowly changes identity. Over years, the original shine begins to fade. High points on the coin start losing sharpness. Fine details begin to soften. Edges become less defined. And what once looked crisp starts looking aged. Collectors notice these changes instantly. Because they don't just see coins. They read them. Like silent historical records. The first focus is Jefferson's portrait. Is the face still strong? Or has time softened the details? Even small differences matter in evaluation. Because detail equals preservation. Then attention moves to Monticello on the reverse. The building is not just design. It is a test of condition. The steps. The columns. The structure. All of it slowly reacts to circulation over time. If the structure is clear, the coin feels preserved. If it is weak, the coin feels heavily used. And that difference changes perception completely. But here is the deeper truth behind this coin. It was never meant to be rare. It was meant to exist in large numbers. Millions were produced. Millions entered circulation. And millions are still out there today. So value does not come from scarcity here. It comes from survival condition. Because out of millions, only a small portion remains in strong preserved condition. And that small portion becomes interesting to collectors. Not because it is rare in theory, but because it is rare in quality. That is the hidden system behind coin collecting. It is not just about age. It is about how time treated the object. Think about how many places this 1984 D nickel may have traveled. A wallet. A store counter. A car dashboard. A coin jar in a kitchen. A forgotten drawer. Each place adds a new layer to its story. And most of these journeys are never recorded. No one writes them down. No one tracks them. But the coin carries the evidence silently. Scratches are not damage alone. They are movement. Faded surfaces are not weakness alone. They are history. Worn details are not loss alone. They are proof of time passing. That is why collectors slow down when they see a coin like this. Because they are not just looking at metal. They are looking at time compressed into a small object. And here is something most beginners misunderstand. They think older means valuable. But in reality, condition decides everything. A worn coin from 1984 is just common. But a sharply preserved one becomes interesting. Not because it changed, but because most others didn't survive the same way. That is the silent rule of this world. Survival creates attention. Attention creates value. And this is where the 1984 D Jefferson nickel becomes meaningful. Not as a rare treasure, but as a reminder of how easily detail disappears over time. Because every coin like this is slowly being shaped by everyday life. Without warning. Without notice. Without pause. And now, as we move forward in this journey, we reach a coin that feels newer again, but still follows the same hidden rule. A coin from 2012. The final chapter of this set. And its story continues next. Now we arrive at a coin that feels almost too new to matter. Almost like it doesn't belong in a history story at all. But that is exactly where most people get it wrong. Because even modern coins carry silent journeys the moment they leave the mint. This is the 2012 D Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks extremely ordinary. Clean design. Familiar portrait of Jefferson. Monticello on the reverse. Standard 5-cent structure. Nothing dramatic. Nothing visually rare. Just another modern nickel in everyday circulation. And because it feels modern, most people instantly assume it has no story yet. But coins don't wait for decades to start their journey. Their story begins immediately. The moment they are released. Time starts working on them. When the 2012 D nickel was minted in Denver, it entered a world already fully digital. fast transactions, card payments, modern banking. Less cash handling than older eras. But still, coins continued moving, passing through stores, machines, hands, and everyday exchanges. At that moment, it was fresh, sharp. Uncirculated examples would have looked clean and perfect. Every detail crisp. Every surface smooth. Every line strong. But perfection is temporary. Even modern coins begin to change the moment circulation starts. Because life is physical. And physical contact always leaves impact. Think about what happens after release. A coin enters a wallet. It rubs against other coins. It enters machines. It moves through transactions. It is handled without care because it feels too normal to protect. And slowly, that untouched surface begins to transform. Not instantly, but gradually. Step by step. Collectors understand this transformation deeply. They don't look at coins like objects. They look at them like time-exposed surfaces. The first thing they study is Jefferson's portrait. Is it still sharp? Are the facial lines visible? Is the engraving strong or slightly softened? Even modern coins can show differences here. Then attention shifts to Monticello. This is where condition becomes very clear. The steps on the building are extremely important. Because they are the first detail to fade with circulation. A strong strike shows clear steps. A weak or worn coin shows soft, flat structure. And that difference immediately changes collector interest. But here is the deeper reality most people miss. This coin is not valuable because of age. It is not valuable because of rarity. It is valuable only when condition stands above average. That is the real system behind modern coin collecting. Not scarcity alone, but preservation quality. Because even though millions of 2012 D nickels exist, they are not all equal anymore. Some stayed in storage. Some entered circulation heavily. Some remained almost untouched. And that creates natural variation. Collectors don't chase the date. They chase the condition within the date. That is a completely different mindset. And this is where the 2012 D nickel becomes interesting. Not as a rare discovery, but as a comparison point. A modern example of how time still affects everything. Even when we think it is too new. Because time doesn't care about perception. Time affects everything equally. Metal does not pause aging. Surfaces do not stay perfect forever. And detail always fades with movement. Think about how many times this coin may have changed hands. A store transaction. A vending machine payment. A casual pocket change exchange. A forgotten coin jar at home. Each moment adds invisible wear. And none of those moments are recorded. No one writes them down. No one tracks them. But the coin carries evidence of all of it. Quietly. Without attention. Scratches are not just damage. They are movement history. Loss of shine is not just aging. It is interaction over time. Softened details are not failure. They are proof of circulation. And that is what makes even a modern coin like this meaningful. Because it shows that time starts working immediately. Not decades later. Collectors see this clearly. They don't wait for coins to become old enough. They study them as soon as they enter circulation. Because condition differences start early. Very early. And that brings us to an important realization. All three coins in this series, 1984 D, 2006 D, 2012 D, follow the same rule. Different years. Different eras. Same outcome. Time slowly changes everything. And survival quality decides what remains interesting. So when you look at a 2012 Jefferson nickel, don't dismiss it. Don't assume it has no story. Don't think modern means meaningless. Because even modern coins are already becoming history. One transaction at a time. One scratch at a time. 1 year at a time. And this is where the full journey connects. Not in rarity. Not in value myths. But in something much simpler. And much deeper. Backhand index pointing right, everything becomes a witness to time. Even a 5-cent coin. And that is the final truth of this series.